Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Ataullah Shah, Associate Professor of Finance at the Institute of Management Sciences, Peshawar. In this lecture, we are going to use the group by function of Pandas, and specifically, we are going to use some filtering techniques. These are very powerful techniques and most commonly used in the financial literature. Actually, these come from the assignment number 5, which we performed before the vacations. If we go to the courses page, Data Science for Finance, and then we move on to the assignment page, assignment number 5 asks for application of group by and the filtering techniques. This assignment asks for 8 specific activities, starting with the importing of data from Excel file into the Pandas DataFrame, and then we generate stock returns for each firm. Next, we convert the daily stock returns into monthly stock returns. Then we convert or collapse the data to an industry level, and since the data we started with was at firm level, once we convert that to industry level, we are left with many duplicate values at the industry level. We need to delete those. And finally, once the data is at industry level and we have monthly returns, we can go ahead and create some descriptive statistics for each industry and some further calculation, for example, finding the industry risk and the industry return and finding the Sharpe ratio. And as an assignment, what you can do is to repeat all these steps using weekly frequency instead of the monthly frequency. We are going to repeat these steps in this assignment, and it will also serve the purpose of refreshing your memories if some of you have forgotten these things, as we had a long break before the COVID-19 vacations. Okay, we start by opening the Jupyter notebook. We go ahead and start with new Python file. First thing first, as you might remember, we need to give this file a name. So we are going to rename it. This, I think, is lecture number 5.3. And give it some meaningful name. Let's give it a name of group by and filtering. We also start with by giving appropriate headings in this document using the markdown feature. We can activate markdown from here. Instead of code, we type markdown, and putting one hash, it will create heading number 1, group by and filtering techniques in Pandas. We are going to number the task assigned to us in the assignment. So the first activity that we need to perform is to import data from the Excel file that is located on the web server. So import data from Excel. And again, this is a markdown cell. We can put a hash to make it heading 1 and then select markdown. The file that was given to us is industries, and if I right click on this file, I can get the file link address. So right click and copy the link address. Let's write this whole address to a variable. We'll name this variable as file. Since this is string, we need to put this in single quotes. And now shift enter. The file address has been written to the file variable. Next, the assignment says that this specific data should be written to DataFrame, and the DataFrame should be named as IND, that is industry. So before using any library, we need to first import that library. So I'm going to add few cells at the top of this notebook. I select this cell and click on plus sign, and now I can move this cell upward by using the upward arrow key, and there I can type import pandas as PD. Now we can use the different methods and function used in this library. Okay, one of the method in the Pandas library is to read Excel file, and if we want to use a command from the Pandas library, remember that we need to affix the PD abbreviation before any specific function, because we are telling Python that the function that we are using is borrowed from this library. Since we abbreviated this library as PD, if we had written just import pandas, we would type pandas.read Excel. However, this time we imported that as a PD. Now we can do is read PD dot read Excel, and the file path which we had written to the file name. Remember, we have to write the data frame to IND and variable. So I'm typing IND equal to PD dot read Excel file, and now shift enter. Star means that this is being processed, the data is being downloaded from the server, and it might take some time. Once there is a number, it means that the line has been executed and now the data has been written to the IND data frame. We can inspect this data frame using different methodologies. For example, if I type ind.info, it will tell me different attributes of this data frame. It says that it has total 6 columns, and these are the column names. The first variable is date, and it has been already formatted as date time. If it was an object, we needed to convert that first to date variable, but it is recorded in date time. We don't need to convert that to a date variable. Second, we have a symbol, which is object. Object means it's a string variable. Name, again it is an object. Close variable is float. Float means it's a real number with some decimal points. And volume is integer, no decimal points, and IND name is object, again string variable. Let's read the first few lines of this data, and we can do that using the ind.head command. Head will print the first few lines of this data frame. The first column shows the index number, the row number starting at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Date variable, as we earlier read that it is a date and time variable. The date is a daily date, and so on and so forth. Close is the closing share price of the company. Symbol is a unique identifier for each company, and in IND name to which industry this firm belongs. We now move on to the second step, that is create periodic stock returns. How can we do that? So let's create the periodic stock returns. Remember how to convert this line into heading 1. I can do that using a shortcut, escape and the numeric 1 key, and it will convert it to heading 1. If we look at the status of this cell, it is a markdown status. It is not a code. Shift enter. Stock returns can be created using two methods. We are going to use the PCT change method, but here we have a problem. The PCT change will calculate percentage change between two consecutive values. So if it will calculate percentage change between these two value, and these two value. The problem arises when this company changes and another company comes. So the two consecutive numbers will not be for the same company, rather they will be for two different companies. And to avoid mixing consecutive values of different companies, we need to use a grouping variable. We need to create a grouping variable and divide the data set into different groups. In this case, the grouping variable is symbol. Each symbol will separate the data from one company to another. So we need to calculate the stock returns in two steps. I'll convert this cell to markdown so that it is normal text, it is not a code. These two steps are, first of all, we need to create a grouping variable, and then to the grouping variable we need to apply the PCT change function. In the first step, we create the group by object, then apply percentage method to find returns. Remember, the grouping variable in our case is the company symbol. And I do remember that this is a markdown cell. So let's move ahead and create the group by object. The group by object can be easily created using the group by function of Pandas. I'll make this specific heading as heading 2, so I'm putting 2 hash signs and make it a markdown Heading 2 is smaller in size from heading 1, and it easily can tell us that it is part of the earlier heading. To further differentiate, what I can do is to write it 2.1 so that it seems it's part of the larger topic too. The grouping variable, I'll call this grouping variable, the grouping object, I'll call it group, and I'm applying it to the IND data frame. Remember, IND data frame is the Pandas frame, and Python knows that since it's a Pandas frame, the group by function will come from Pandas library. So group by, okay, each method or each function use small brackets. If we have just one variable, we can type it like this symbol. If we have many variables, we need to use a Python list. The Python list, is always enclosed in square brackets. So if we have two grouping variables, we'll type it like this: square brackets, one variable, comma, then name of the any other variable. So it is up to you. In our case, we can either use or we do not use the square brackets. So I'll keep using square bracket for consistency. So in future, if we need to use two grouping variables, we'll just put a comma and type them. So this will create a group object, and this group object doesn't show any meaningful information. If I type group, it just gives me the memory address where this group object is stored, and it shows that it's Panda core group by generic object. So at this moment, we do not need anything from this group object. Rather, in the second step, we'll use this group object. The second step was to create stock returns using the %PCT change method. Again, I am putting two hashes and converting this to a markdown. So find %change returns within each group. Remember, the grouping variable is symbol. So once we find the returns, do we need to show them on screen only, or we add those return as a separate column to the IND data frame? Of course, we need to add a separate column for that. Whenever we need to add a separate column, we type the data frame name and then square brackets and type the name of the new column or new variable that we want to add to the data frame. Let's say we add a new column with the name of RET, that is return. It will add a new column to the IND data frame. So how this new column will be calculated? It will be calculated from the group object that we created in step number 1. We just pick one variable, and that variable is close. Close, you remember, is the closing share price in our data frame. So From the group object, we pick just one variable, and to this variable we apply a method called pct underscore change. This method doesn't need an argument at this moment, so we leave this specific part empty. Okay. Let's see, we made a mistake in typing the pct change. Let's correct that mistake and try again. So this time it goes well. Let's see how the data frame now looks like. So ind dot head since there was no previous value of the share price to calculate percentage change, so it is shown as not a number. N means not a number, and we have percentage changes for other cases. So we have a new column which we created using this specific notation. ind is the data frame name, and then in square brackets that is used for slicing, but in this case we told that we want to create a new variable, and this new variable was equal to percentage change in the close, but those calculations were performed within the groups which were defined on the basis of the symbol.